One of the best things about the internet is its ability to provide information. And online reviews have been like probably the thing you started using the internet for decades ago, right? When you were Googling, or even before then, that was probably Yahooing, or even before that, my Jeevesing, different reviews of what you should do, right? Are these things a good idea? Should I buy this? Should I buy that? And for cruises, I think that's definitely one of the things that a lot of people use to get more information about which cruise they should go on. And without a shadow of a doubt, the one website that everybody goes to get reviews of cruise ships and cruise lines is definitely cruisecritic.com. I know I have. That's how I got my feet wet within the world of cruising. And joining me today is Colleen McDaniel, who's the editor-in-chief of cruisecritic.com. And I think I say for a lot of people out there, there is no better resource for reviews than your website, Colleen. So thank you for joining me here today.
Oh my gosh, thank you for saying that. I'm super excited to talk with you as always, Matt.
Absolutely. I wanted to bring you on because I think our audience knows about Cruise Critic. This is not probably a surprise to them, but what is different, I feel like in 2025 compared to 5, 10, 15 years ago, when you're talking about online reviews is how do you really navigate them? How do you find a review that's valuable? Because there's a lot of things. There are those notorious one-star reviews, right? About from someone who leaves that's like worst cruise ship ever. And then also you have the other aspect, which is AI reviews, which is becoming a really big problem particularly in Amazon, and we'll talk about this here within your thing, but how do you navigate what's real, what's not? So when someone comes to you, Colleen, and says, I want to find the right ship for me, and you say, of course, well, you should read some reviews of a cruise ship. How do you, how should people approach online reviews in terms of understanding what they are and how they can benefit?
Well, I think that one of the biggest things people are looking for is social affirmation or confirmation that they're making the right choices. This is why reviews have been so important for so many years. And at Cruise Critic, we're celebrating our 30th anniversary and have been doing it for quite a while. And one of the things that we do at Cruise Critic is we have two types of reviews. We have what are called our expert or professional reviews, which are written by the team of editors we have. And these are very thorough walkthroughs of the ship and specific explorations of the experience. And then, of course, we have user reviews. And for a lot of people, both are valuable, but those user reviews are especially important because cruisers can find within the review a cruiser who is just like them. And that's one of the first pieces of advice I give to people is like, think about what kind of cruiser, what kind of traveler you are. And when you're sorting through those reviews, look for those pieces from a review that feel like, hey, that person is like me. They love dining or dining isn't important to them. They're traveling with kids or they're not traveling with kids. Because if somebody's complaining that there were too many kids on board, and you're traveling with kids, that's not a review that's going to be of a lot of benefit to you.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously there's a lot of things that we can dive into right from that recommendation because it's a great one to start off with, and that is sifting through the reviews because inevitably, I'm sure you've seen it as well. I see a comment somewhere like, "Oh, I just read this terrible review of this ship," right? And they'd use this one review as the basis for why they shouldn't, or even sometimes some cases may be a couple of different negative reviews. How should people weigh reviews and what should they look for within the review itself? You mentioned, the people who complain about having kids, which of course is one of my pet peeves, like people who complain about kids on Royal Caribbean. It's like, wait a minute, you're on a family cruise line and you're complaining about kids? What? Like that doesn't even make any sense to me personally. But how do you go through these reviews and what should someone look for in terms of how do you sift through them to find the value or truly I don't say the answer, but the real consensus of what to look for?
Sure. And there are a couple of things that I think people should look for. Number one is check out the headline. People actually really do a nice job of summarizing what is coming in the cruise. So if they see a great family vacation on Splendor of the Seas, well, if family is important, that one stands out to you right away. Also, you can look for some of the information about that is identifying the cruiser by age range. So we include an age range for that cruiser. And so if you're like, hey, I'm a cruiser in my 60s who's traveling solo, well, you can find reviews that from people who are like-minded. Also, you can see how many cruises somebody has been on. And so, hey, some people are experts. Some people have been on more cruises than you and I'm at. And so there are people out there that like have a lot of experience, or somebody who was going on for the first time. And so they learned lessons from that first time cruise and brought them back to a review. So check out that kind of information to help you sift and sort through. Also, pay attention to the date. Because, I mentioned we're celebrating 30 years. We have collected a lot of reviews over the years. And, some of them stand the test of time. But the truth is, ships change. So what Freedom of the Seas looks like now is not what Freedom of the Seas looked like when it debuted. So make sure that what you're reading is actually a representation of the latest iteration of that ship. So, check it out. Go back a year or two really to get an understanding of what those reviews look like.
Let me ask you a question. Are one-star reviews unfair?
I don't think they're unfair. I think that there are people who have experiences that are, just didn't fit what their expectations are. We have, anywhere from one bubble to five bubbles, of course, on Cruise Critic. But I do think that we take a lot of care in ensuring that somebody who does come on and leave that one bubble review is leaving it about the entire cruise experience. We certainly, when we ask for a review, we're asking for somebody to review the whole cruise experience. That is, all the time on ship. Yes, that includes your time ashore, that includes embarkation and disembarkation. But if someone had a lousy embarkation and disembarkation, but doesn't write about the cruise at all, that doesn't help anybody. So that's the kind of review that we might ask for more information on, to make it a better review that will be more helpful to other
Sure.
cruisers.
And when you look at a lot of these reviews, especially for Royal Caribbean at least, I think every single ship is going to fall somewhere in the 4-star range, somewhere between four bubbles, excuse me,
Mhm.
somewhere between 4.0 and 4.9 or something like that. Depends on the ship and a variety of factors there. So obviously there's not like, we're not talking about like Chinese food restaurants where there's like, oh God, don't go to this restaurant, that kind of thing where you have in
Right.
your town that. So you're talking about varying degrees of differences as opposed to like seismic shifts and like this ship versus that ship. So,
Mhm.
obviously, if you're shopping purely based on the bubble rating, you're not going to get very far, I think, because you're not going to get any conclusions. Um, where should you start? You talked about you're going to have on any given ship thousands of reviews to go
Mhm.
through. What's your recommendation for where to start and what to look for specifically within the Cruise Critic review system as probably the most impactful aspect of the review for the
Sure.
reader?
Yeah, so I would start at the beginning, right? Or not the beginning, I should say at the most recent, right? And you can really scroll back from there. And what I always recommend for people is they look for common themes.
Hmm.
If there's something that comes off as a one-off, it probably was somebody with a singular bad experience. But if there is something that comes up over and over and over again, that
Sure.
likely actually is a highlight of the ship or a problem of the ship. So, for example, if a ship it comes up as like, oh, it feels a little worn, it feels a little old, it feels a little, and that keeps coming up over and over again, you can pause and say, does that matter to me? Does it
Yeah.
matter to me that the rooms aren't as modern as they are on some of the newer ships? Or can I live with that? Am I totally fine with that? If it comes up that the food is excellent over and over again, is that a reason to potentially book? So look for those themes, especially from the recent cruises. Now, I will caveat that with a little secret about Cruise Critic, and that is we see a lot of commonality in kind of the way ships are reviewed, right? When ships first debut, like an Icon of the Seas, like a Utopia of the Seas, they actually start off with a lower rating.
Hmm.
And the reason we believe this is that often the people who are sailing on those very early sailings are Royal Caribbean's biggest fans. So they have an expectation and they might love the Jewel of the Seas because they love the glass and the dark woods and the open sea concept. And Icon isn't that, right?
Hmm.
And so there are people who have an expectation of what that might be. And So they come in and they're disappointed that that ship doesn't deliver that experience. But what we find is after those very loyal, avid cruisers are sailing on those, we start to really see those reviews going up because there are people who've experienced who they might be first time cruisers. They don't have that in their background. And all of a sudden people are like, boy, I had a great time on Icon of the Seas. Love the sports bar. Really enjoyed everything that it had to offer. My kids love the kids clubs. And so we start seeing that rise. So take with a grain of salt when a new ship comes that, hey, some of these reviews are going to be a little bit lower and have a little bit skeptical eye when there is a newer review from users for a new ship.
Absolutely. That's a great piece of advice. And I'm glad you mentioned about the new ship thing. That's something definitely keep in mind. Also, even if they're not, super cruisers, inaugural cruises, as you know, sometimes the first 4 or 5 sailings maybe can vastly different because certain venues aren't ready yet. And that can deeply impact that. So yeah, you got to look at it take a wider array of reviews over time. Don't let the early ones sway you.
And that's such a great point that you bring up because, a lot of times what cruise lines do when they have a new ship is they take crew from existing ships, people that are, maybe the best of the best, and they put them on those new ships. But it takes a while to gel, right? Those people are getting used to working with each other. They're getting used to working on a new ship. And so, sometimes service can be a little bit challenging at the beginning when a cruise ship just launches. So again, that might be something you see early on as somebody's like, oh, the service was slow or, whatever. But there's going to be improvement because it just takes time for people to get used to a new job.
Yeah. Let's talk about AI. That's a big topic right now. And I'm going to be blunt with you, Colleen. Does Cruise Critic have a problem with AI reviews?
We do not have a problem with AI reviews.
Great.
We are very careful and ensure that AI reviews do not get on the site. We have a few things in place, some of which I can talk about and some of which I cannot. But one thing that actually helps challenge AI is we have a requirement for a word count that is pretty high compared with a lot of other review sites. So somebody can't just come on and say, Royal Caribbean Jewel of the Seas was the best ship I've ever been on and leave it at that.
Hmm.
That doesn't work on Cruise Critic. It's non-specific. It doesn't hit that initial word count. And so the word count really is a good way of fending off challenges from things like AI. Yes, AI can be verbose. But one of the things we found about AI is it's not detailed or in depth the way real reviews from real cruisers are. Of course, we have software to check reviews to ensure that they are not AI. And we have people who keep an eye on reviews as well. So those things really do help us. It doesn't make us immune. I think every site will continue to have challenges when it comes to collecting reviews, but we feel confident that we have some pieces in place to keep out AI and ensure that our reviews are robust and genuine.
Correct me if I'm wrong. It feels like AI reviews in general tend to I would imagine, would have more of an impact on reviews that have more of a material cost benefit immediately. Like as an example, if you have an Amazon product and you're trying to sell it, obviously there is a huge benefit if you can have 1,000 reviews instantly that have 5 stars and this is the best thing ever because people are then instantly going to click and book. Whereas for Cruise Critic, that isn't necessarily a direct one-to-one. So perhaps AI has less of a incentive, if you will, to go after this because ultimately impacting your reviews, like I don't know what the bad actor really gets out of that. Maybe other than like review bombing something, I suppose, but
Right.
I don't know if that's really a thing. Anyway, talk to me about your view of AI within just reviews in general as it relates to the cruise industry and within travel, because obviously, Cruise Critic is owned by TripAdvisor, and obviously there's a big component that goes with that as well in the grand scheme of things. So I am sure you're privy to a lot of these discussions, and you're talking about this in your day-to-day stuff. So where do you see AI currently as it relates to online reviews, and how should potential cruisers think about that as well?
Yeah, it's such a challenging question because AI, of course, is still evolving. And there are some really big positives to AI, and there's some really big negatives to it
Mhm.
as well. One of the areas where AI actually can help with reviews is the idea of prompting people. Like, hey, if for example, it can prompt people to say, I notice you didn't write a lot about your cabin. Tell me a little about that
Hmm.
experience, right? And so there's prompting to help people write a review that is a little more in depth, that's a little more helpful, that'll get, thumbs up votes, that kind of thing. Um, that's terrific. And also, there are people who are really concerned about their writing. Hey, I'm worried that this doesn't make sense. So running something through AI is certainly, I understand the natural instinct for people to do that. Make sure I don't have any spelling errors, make sure that I am clear or concise or whatever the prompt you're going to provide to AI is. But the danger of that absolutely is AI detectors pick up on stuff like that. People aren't perfect.
Yeah.
We expect that. I have written more than one review back before I even joined Cruise Critic, where I went and read it later and saw a typo or something that drove me crazy, but people aren't perfect. And so, perfection is kind of a tip off for for AI, but it absolutely can help you clarify where you want to go with a review. Like if you kind of go on board and you're like, I had great service, absolutely love the service on board. My kids really enjoyed the kids clubs. The food was just okay.
Yeah.
I liked it here, but didn't like it here. Like you could put that into AI and it could lead you down a path. But again, the concept is like, okay, an AI checker absolutely could flag that kind of thing. And so it's using AI as sort of a chance to set a skeleton.
Hmm.
Hey, it helps you get your thoughts in place, et cetera. But I think there's a lot of opportunity for it. But it still requires that human element. And I think let's be honest, that's what we're struggling with as a industry, as a nation, is trying to figure out where the human element actually fits in with AI. And to be clear, we do not use AI to generate any content at Cruise Critic. It is all real people. But certainly, like I understand for people that want to do reviews, why there might be a temptation to lean into something that could really help them.
Sure. Let's go back to those human reviews, especially when people are reading them. For real, let's put this for Royal Caribbean because I think when you're looking at a review for, you know, an expedition line versus a mainstream line, I think there's very different criteria that people are looking for. So if you're looking at a mainstream line and you're reading through a review, what would you recommend to readers that they key in on? Like, what are the most important aspects of a review that relate to a mainstream line like Royal Caribbean that probably is going to be the most impactful for deciding which ship they should go on?
Yeah. Again, I would take it back to that concept of like looking for those things that matter, right? I'm somebody, I probably spend more time in my cabin than I should. So for me, a cabin is a really important piece of information there. So I will be spending a lot of time looking through reviews, whether it's a user review or an expert review, to sort of understand what I can expect from that cabin. If somebody's like, you know what, that's just a spot where I dump my stuff, and sleep and that's it, cabins doesn't they just don't matter. So really key in on those pieces that make the review most relevant to you. It's to go with the Amazon analogy. When you're buying something, you do the same thing. You look for people who care about the same things you do. You're buying shoes, and somebody says, boy, it doesn't really work well for people with wide feet. And if you have wide feet, okay, that matters to me. So it's that same concept, really keeping an eye out for those pieces.
Does Cruise Critic offer within its review system the ability to know who's reviewing it? Not personally, but like could you see that there is user X that has 17 reviews on Cruise Critic as opposed to the person who comes in this is the worst cruise ever, they write their piece and they're gone forever and they never write another review? Because I don't know if that's a feature in there, because it would seem to me that would be kind of cool to be able to, oh, this is a trusted reviewer, someone who's been on a lot of cruises. Their opinion might hold a little more water than, again, a one-hit wonder kind of person.
Yeah, and we certainly list the number of cruises that folks have been on, and they
Hmm.
can find that. The thing that actually makes it a little bit challenging, but also awesome, is that we also have message boards, and if you're not familiar with Cruise Critic, we do have forums where people can go and talk about cruising. Anything from questions about drinks packages to sharing an experience live from onboard a ship. And this is something our cruisers love to do, and we love to read these. These are literally people who are on board Independence of the Seas, and they are every day posting a bunch of photos, talking about their experiences, posting menus, and talking about what they liked and don't like. These same people who have posted 7 days straight with so much information might never go and leave a
Mm.
review. But the information that is left in what we call a live from thread is invaluable. And so I do encourage people to actually look for those live threads, because they're incredibly helpful and so detailed.
Have you obviously you have a library of reviews there. Have you personally used the Cruise Critic reviews? Not from your staff, because your staff are amazing. I know you trust Chris's reviews bar none, second to none. But have you ever gone into the review system to pick out a ship uh purely based on the reviews that you've seen within your own system?
Absolutely. I actually was a Cruise Critic fan before I joined Cruise Critic back in 2012. And I've been a cruiser since 2001. And so I have used Cruise Critic for a very long time, and I have absolutely used reviews to help me make a decision between itineraries, between ships. Like many cruisers, I was pretty cruise line agnostic back in the day. And so I, would say, I want to go to the Eastern Caribbean. Oh my gosh, there are 6 ships at the time that are in the Eastern Caribbean. I'd go to Cruise Critic and I would read reviews to find out which ship felt like the right ship for me. And I feel really confident that it helped me make great decisions along the way. And so I absolutely use them. I have left reviews as a user, as a member of Cruise Critic long before I joined here. I do not leave reviews any longer. I instead write reviews for the expert and pro perspective. But absolutely, I've been a big fan of Cruise Critic and a big proponent for a very long time.
Fantastic. Well, Colleen, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us here today about this, because I think there's certainly a lot of value. And in a world in which there's more and more noise with reviews, and again, I read this negative thing by my cousin on Facebook, like, it helps to have a good source of information to leverage to be able to make an informed decision rather than a knee-jerk reaction to any particular cruise. So that's fantastic.
Great. Well, thank you so much for giving me a chance to talk about one of my favorite things.
All right, friends, time to answer your listener emails. This is the part of the episode where I dive into the email inbox that people have sent me questions about, and we're going to answer them here on the podcast. Starting with a question from Bob. Hi, Matt. Was wondering if their Royal Beach Club would be opening in Nassau by the end of December. My wife and I are booked on Wonder of the Seas the day after Christmas for a 3-day cruise to Coco Key and Nassau. So we're hoping we can enjoy this new private area if possible. Thanks for any information you can provide. Thanks for all you do on the podcast. So as of the recording of this podcast, we still don't know yet when it will open. We do know that it'll be in December. And from what I can tell, it'll be very late in December. But Bob, it's just simply too early to know exactly when in December it will become available to book. We're just kind of waiting and seeing when it comes to projects like this, whether it's the new beach club here in Nassau or Perfect Day Mexico or any of these other new projects. I mean, really, it's a waiting game. And I know as cruisers who are excited for these things, we just simply want to know if we're going to have a chance for it and when we can book it and can we book it. But unfortunately, in situations like this, we're kind of at the mercy of Royal Caribbean to release information, and they definitely like to cross their T's and dot their I's before it becomes available. So just got to keep them waiting just a little bit longer. Our next question is from Jacob from Tallahassee. Thanks so much for what you do. Quick question on booking, especially dining in advance. My family of 5 is going on a 9-nighter New Year's Eve cruise on Explorer of the Seas this year. We'd love to book Chef's Table, and I see that the price is on the app and there's an option to reserve. But when I click on each day of the sailing, it says there's no availability for all 9 nights. Same is true for Zumi and Chops as well. I can't imagine every dining venue is already sold out 6 months in advance. Is the app just glitching, or am I too far out? I think it's either one or two of those things, Jacob. I agree with you. It's very unlikely that all those restaurants are sold out already. I think, quite frankly, it's either the app acting weird or you're too far out. I'd also check on the website. Don't forget, the app is good, but I prefer for pre-cruise planning to use the website. Go to royalcaribbean.com, go to the cruise planner and do it that way. But I think it's either one or both of that, Jacob. Either you are too far out and or the website app is glitching. So I wouldn't read too much into it. I would just, give it another, little while, maybe another week or two, and check back. You're right. 6 months is right at that magic time when things do become available. So keep checking back is my best advice. And our last email today is from Steve. Matt, really appreciate what you do. My family and I are going on, for all intents and purposes, our first cruise on Symphony of the Seas in July, leaving from New Jersey and going to the Bahamas. My wife and I went on a cruise over 20 years ago with a kid, son 18, and triplet girls 16 have never been on a cruise. Hang on, I'm trying to wrap my mind around triplet girls who are teenagers. You have my sympathy, sir. My primary question is about gluten-free options on the ship. My wife and all my kids have celiac disease. We picked Royal Caribbean since it was touted as having some of the best options for gluten-free foods. We're not planning on any specialty dining. We figure our first cruise will have enough with the dining room and the buffet meals. We will talk to the server to discuss options, but I have a daughter who is picky. She'll eat gluten-free pizza and gluten-free pasta, but not much else. Do you know if they would let us get a gluten-free pizza from Sorrento's and bring it up to the dining room, or would they have a gluten-free pizza available? We watched your full ship tour on Symphony, which was great. Any other thoughts on the ship for first-timers? Also, have you done Blue Lagoon excursions? We booked the Dolphin Encounter. I'm wondering if you had any thoughts on this experience and Blue Lagoon in general. Thanks again for what you do. Having your videos and podcasts has been so valuable for us to help plan the cruise. The good news is you heard right. Royal Caribbean is fantastic for gluten-free options. When you get to the dining room, they'll ask about allergies. You'll talk about this. They'll work with you. I mean, at the very least, yes, they absolutely allow you to bring food in. In many cases, my youngest daughter, who just is very picky, likes pizza from Sorrento's. And there were many times in which she just went down, got pizza from Sorrento's, and brought it to the main dining room or even a specialty restaurant. They don't mind at all. In fact, in a lot of cases, the servers don't even mind getting it themselves, especially considering that Sorrento's is not that far away. But talk to the servers first, see what's available to you, and they can work with you. But Steve, I really think you'll have no problems at all. They'll be more than happy to accommodate your entire family, including your one of your picky kids there. So no worries at all. As for the ship itself, Symphony is a great ship, Oasis class. When you go on an Oasis class ship, the entertainment should be your focus. The show's on board. Definitely make sure you make an effort to see them, make reservations ahead of time for them. That's really important. As for Blue Lagoon, I've been there once. I sent one of my writers there recently. She didn't love it. It's one of those excursions where it's overpriced. It's okay. But it's kind of to get there, you need to take a little ferry boat out there. It is an animal encounter experience. I think that's probably more compelling than say, hey, I just want to go to the beach. When I went there, and this was years ago, back in, I think it was like 2020, right before the cruise industry shut down. I did the VIP experience there, and I was underwhelmed by it. I thought the VIP beach area was terrible because there was no actual beach. It was more of a view of a beach because it was on a rocky area. I thought it was really busy. The only saving grace was I bought the VIP package because it allowed me to bypass the line getting off the ferry and back onto the ferry at the end. It's not terrible. I just personally think you're better off doing like resortforaday.com and getting a day pass to one of the hotels, resorts that are around Nassau. That being said, that they don't have animal encounters. So if your goal, I think it is to do a primary, to do an animal encounter, well, then that's probably your best option there. So I would probably stick with it. But if you're like, Matt, we just booked an excursion, this one kind of looked kind of interesting, I might reconsider simply for the resort for a day. But again, if you're in for the animal encounter, then yeah, very good. That's going to wrap things up for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast. Of course, you can email me your questions by sending to Matt, M-A-T-T, @RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. Until next time, I'm Matt. We'll talk again real soon.